Okay. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you tune in. Hope everything's going okay for you, especially around this time of the season. I, while I wait for anyone to hop on, I decided I want to give thanks to someone right now. I mean, if there's a time as any in order to show some appreciation to some of the people that have influenced you to where you are right now in life, I thought it'd be my turn to say my piece. How's it going, CK? How's it going, everybody? So yeah, um, those of you that don't follow this channel, it's fine. But there is one thing that I want to say first, and I wanted to give my thanks and appreciation for the channel by Ryan Moody 21. Now he is known for making Madden videos. Recently, making like NASCAR videos and having his thoughts being previously spurted about like currency and investing and whatnot. But for the most part, he's built up his platform and he's built up his community by means of showing off things in which Madden can improve. Throughout that time, we have had discussions, him and I, because for over 2 years, I have been a patron from him. If you check some of his like lengthier videos, you'll see like the long list of patrons that he gives thanks to at the end of every video, and my name is pretty high up there because at the time there wasn't a whole lot of us. Because there wasn't a whole lot of us at the time, I was actually able to get into his fantasy football league. That league is the one that I'm currently 10-1 in right now. So it's not just that, but it's also our conversations that we've had. Few though they are. Um, I remember one of them that we had where it was about just my living situation and the circumstances that may have prevented me from doing anything like this. Um, we talked about it, and it caused me to self-reflect. I was like, okay, well, what am I not doing that could stop myself, right? So I thought about it, and then, well, 2 years later, I've worked up to it, and there I am. That's not to say that I'm somebody now, you know, but it does give me that confidence to know that, hey, if I ever wanted to branch out and do something, all it takes is just effort on my part. All it takes is just a little convincing of myself in order to convince anyone else that I'm worth a darn. So I bring all of this up because right now he's currently facing serious health concerns. Now, he posted up on a video on it yesterday, and it was just heartbreaking to hear it. If you're a longtime viewer, if you're not, like, you would understand the pain of knowing like how to tell and how to have certain conversations with ones about about like the physical pain that you've endured and ignored for a couple of times. Um, I might give some of my examples of my own if anyone cares to hear it. I know that no one's really here at the moment, but well, let me appreciate some of the people that are. How's it going, Smooth C78? Of course, we are here again, man. It's my night. I'm just kidding. But um, speaking of advancing, I have a announcement that I would like to make once I know that our conversation about everything else is done. So I can't forget about it because, well, it's pretty big and it involves a lot of future planning that I'm sure that some of you guys are going to enjoy. But right now, let's get into this conversation about the Jaguars versus the Falcons. Um, you know, of course, yesterday we had the heavy hitter show where we talked about some of the keys that were involved in getting a win here, and then what the Jaguars would need to do in order to get a win against us. We should not be one to take this game lightly because we know what happens in the NFL when you do. We know what happens when you play down to your competition. You know, we've seen plenty of examples of this week after week after week. So as much as I want to say, oh well, it's the Jaguars. Like we have an easy chance of winning. I can't always say that because of situations where there's no guarantees in the NFL. And what Arthur Smith has kept preaching is that if you live to the week by week narrative, it's going to eat you alive. If you live by the day by day overreaction type of stuff, it's going to hurt you. So this is not one to take lightly. Now, of course, we've had uh, struggles on offense, struggles on defense, struggles on special teams, struggles in play calling. Yeah, it there was supposed to be a however, but that's the matter of the situation. Well, with all that being said, though, we are still technically right in the thick of it. Now, do we have the most favorable matchups? Mm, it's hard to say because certain other teams, when you get a groove in this time of the season, you can just start piling up wins. And once we get a game where we can pile up wins, it'll be easy. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, isn't the next game after this Tampa Bay at our home? Well, we still technically have not won and not looked good at. Well, of course. But as we've seen, week by week, and our offense and our defense continues to have some sort of chemistry. How's it going, Tony? Yeah. It's fascinating to think that there are people that they obviously don't like the team, and yet they're trying to say that we are not being realistic about our things and that we're lying to people. Like me saying that things are struggling in every facet of the game and every facet of the franchise, like, is that not enough for you? Because if you want me to lie, I can say that there's actually no problem going on for us. I can say that there's no problem and that we're doing exactly just fine and that we're doing exactly what we want. It's not the case though, and we all understand that. But we also know that we are in year one of growing a tree. You can't expect a sequoia in year one. You can't expect a long lasting thing and have all sorts of fruitage in year one. So, ain't no reason to give up on the season right now. We can't hang our heads low every single week because, well, we have this game coming up. We have some favorable matchups after this. We have a couple of revenge games in our division. We have to really prove ourselves, and it's not like our other conferences have been so much better. We're technically we're one of 3 divisions where everyone in those divisions have at least 4 wins. So when you put it in that perspective, everyone is still kind of in the hunt. I don't know if the Lions have been technically mathematically been eliminated from the playoffs, but the fact that they have not, like the fact that that has not been announced yet, it shows you the type of league that we're in right now because they still haven't won a game. We shouldn't play Cordero Patterson this week. Let him rest that high ankle sprain for another week to get stronger for the Tampa game. I would concur with that if I felt completely confident about everyone else that we have. As we've seen before in the last Saturday stream, if you give us a scale of 1 to 10 of how worried you are about a certain position moving forward, the poll that I had that was live at the time was a straight up 10. If we thin that position out, that's already thin. Obviously we're not as injured as certain other teams. The Titans literally broke a record as far as like how many players they've had starting or have had playing for them, and it's not even like week 12 or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of problems going on in every team in the NFL. But when we are trying to save up for certain games, I think you might lose chemistry with that. And I know that Cordell Patterson has been fantastic, and you should definitely vote for the Pro Bowl for him. You got to find him, but I think that he's had a season that was deserving of at least a couple of looks at there. It took the game. Tony Ryan's also saying it took the coaches 10 games to play Quadri Allison, and what do you know? Look what he did once they played him. I'd also suggest that look what happened once we got into situations where the defense didn't know what to do against our offense, and it was particularly in some short yardage situations. And once we were able to pick those up on the ground game, that's when Quadri Allison was really getting the yards. It was because once there is a measurement where you don't know what the play is on as an opponent versus when you do. How good can you play when the defense knows what you're doing? For us right now, it's not good at all. But that's how we've always been. Like, I don't know if anyone else has done this, but I always find myself trying to predict the play before it happens. And if a guy like me is usually right, that lets you know that the defense knows exactly what they're doing at pretty much all the time. So when you get stopped like that, it's not surprising. So it's sometimes not just a matter of the play call itself, but it's just the situation that you're being stuck at. So when you get into, what Arthur Smith always says, when you get into those obvious situations, you play obvious, and your opponent, it's obvious to them what they need to do in order to stop you. So that's why we are the way that we are. And you brought up a good point. I think that when you take a look at everything, it's not just a matter of what our record is and what it looks like. There's a lot more facets to a rebuild than just, oh, you just lose out and you just get the top pick in the draft. It's not always how it works. All right. As a matter of fact, that's not like that can't work for us right now because of the other underlying issues here. So when you're just looking at the record and be like, okay, well, should we tank or should we not? I think it's important in order for us to look competitive in every game, and that's exactly what Arthur Smith and Dean Pease wants to see. So can we at least look competitive? It's frustrating to see as a fan, but when you know where you're confident at in your team moving forward, you can start paying attention and start evaluating more positions down the road. And then it'd be like, okay, well, I think we're fine here, but I think that we really need a lot more competition when it comes to this position. I think we need a lot more competition when it comes to this position group, or, one certain player, if you will. When it comes to, losing out on injuries and whatnot, and depth pieces falling, and the contract disputes that have been happening, or not like disputes, but just the problems that lie with what we have or what we don't have as far as money is concerned. Everything that has to, run its course, that's everything that we're waiting for right now. So it's not like just a high draft pick is going to solve our situation. And it's not like we can't get any talent further down in the draft, because we've seen so many examples of players that just fall and fall. Now, is this the type of draft class where, you need the number one pick in the draft in order to get the best guy? I don't see that as the case. Like, I don't see anyone running away with the first pick in the draft right now. And for me, that's a good thing. It means that everyone is sort of balanced out. That even though that there are like a lot of names that are being thrown up at the top, No one's been like, oh yeah, well just draft him at first overall pick, and now we have to talk about that. Of course, this is also not the time of like the time during the season in order to confidently have all those kind of conversations. But for right now, it's just good for us in order to check like where to begin. So the TLDR of this is we can't rebuild for so many different factors. So you might as well try in every single game and see what you got as far as the effort that each player can give on your roster. And if that's not satisfactory for you as a coach, then you know who you need to get rid of now. The problems become a lot easier in that regard moving forward when you're trying to rally up a couple of wins in order to keep your keep your sanity. Detroit's best chance is to win tomorrow. I haven't completely looked at the schedule. Don't they play tomorrow? Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's a brain fart, but okay, you're saying I feel confident about Lemon Zacchaeus and Taja Sharp playing Frank Darby and get him some targets. Yeah, like that's something that we'll definitely need to take care of. Getting him up to speed is crucial for the wide receiver position. He is someone that will definitely need to train in order to have some semblance of confidence in us in the event that guys like Calvin Ridley and Cordell Patterson can't come back to us for one reason or another. Either we can't give them enough money or they just don't have the life circumstances in order to continue being a player for our team. You're also saying Claude Allison, Wayne Gallman, and Mike Davis should be used in a 3 running back rotation. I'd argue that I wouldn't really want any of them. And I'm not to say that Quadri Allison hasn't given us a spark that the other two really haven't. But like what you were saying yesterday, in his live stream, it's like you want to have a good rotation of young backs and fresh legs in order to properly get that rolling, right? So to rely on Mike Davis, for example, I kind of want to touch on him a little bit right now. I might answer the question as like why the Mike Davis experiment has failed. The short answer is because he was in the Panthers offense that was completely reliant on the production of the running back. And that's what made all of his stats look so good. Because that offense was prepared for a running back to step up and be great. Ours right now isn't. It really can't. So that's the TLDR. But if you want me to go and continue that conversation, we'll do that because I'm honestly not going to be here forever. And I say that, and then we're still going to be here for like an hour and a half. But what's up, Mario? Competition comes with better drafting and free agent signings. Yeah, but you also can't just completely ignore everyone that you have on the field for you right now. Because we don't have enough draft picks in order to solve all these problems, and we don't have enough money in order to sign all of our problems away. So, like, what do you do there? Ooh, I don't know who's saying hello to me, but hello to you. Did we pay the wrong running back? CP versus Davis. Does Allison deserve to still be on this team? So when you're saying, did we pay the wrong running back? I don't think their contract has exceeded like $3 million a year. That's basically all that we could give them for a type of signing that we had. And, like I said, at the time, Mike Davis had a really productive season right now last year with the Panthers, having all those scrimmage yards, breaking a lot of tackles, and being good during open space. And then he shows that he wants to be here, takes a, less money than probably what he would have been given otherwise had he not been a Georgia native, and decide that he really wanted to play for his favorite team. Now, there's a lot of obstacles in his way, that being, like I said, the predictive defense, the predictive situations that our offense falls into that go along with that. Like, we're not really playing complementary football in the sense to where other teams can. So it's like I take a look at some of the other teams that are really successful, and I'm like, man, like even their backups can do well. Like, you see how amazing Colt McCoy looked in the replacement of Kyler Murray. Like, very efficient numbers, might I add. But again, that's not everything that's there. You know, a quarterback is often in a different position than a running back in order to succeed. But as Arthur Smith mentioned, it takes all 11 in order to get the passing game working. It takes all 10, well, maybe 11, in order to get the running game working as well. I say 11 for the run game because you might have certain tells that a quarterback could give, you know, before the play to let the defense know, oh, hey, well, this is the type of run. And I'll give you an example of that. I've said this, I probably said this before, but in case anyone else is new, a former coach of Brett Favre had said that he was the easiest quarterback in order to practice against because on every single passing play, he would always look for the safeties, but he never did that for a run play. So it's tells like that that can also tip off a defense in terms of what is going on in the play. So you also have to you also have to be wary of that. You know, sometimes the experience that you can get as a quarterback provides other mistakes from having happened. So when I say it takes all 11, yeah, I really do mean that it takes all 11 because if you are a quarterback and you line up in the same way as you do on an offensive play or on a run play for a pass play, then you're not letting the defense gain any extra information. All right. So sometimes it's all about body language. It's all about what you do on every single play that can sneakily tip off a defense and let them know, okay, well, now I know what you're doing because you don't do this on this play. So going back to the running back question, there may be tells then which the offensive line are given as well. You know, maybe they line up in a certain way, maybe their hand placement, little things like that can let a defensive lineman know. You know, when you're on the defensive side of the film room, like you have to study everything about these offensive players. And sometimes you might get a replacement guy in which you have no tell, which is why sometimes an offensive lineman that would be a backup might perform just as well as the starter because, well, there's simply no tape on the guy. So there's no tell. So it's like you have to experiment with that matchup as the game is happening. So when there's tape for Mike Davis, when there's tape for Cordero Patterson, there's differences between them and not just in how they run or how they react after the play, but it's sometimes before as well. So having the personnel package for the defense can can cause some confusion for the defensive side. You know, if we were to have Patterson and Davis, is that 12 or 21 personnel, or is that 11 personnel possibly? You don't know, but thanks to us being cheap, having no choice but to be cheap, we're able to unlock certain traits of a guy and then have them flourish in a non-favorable situation, which is why Allison comes into play. Because I said this before, it's like I don't like all of my chances at any one of them at running back, especially not starting. But right now, he deserves to be on the team because he's a difference maker. And like I said, it's like sometimes because he's not on the field as much, there's not much of a sign that the defense can have for when Allison's on the field as in comparison to Mike Davis or Cordero Patterson. So certain personnel packages like that, they can really determine whether or not a run play or a pass play is happening, play action, draw play, fake, all those kinds of things. So I think about it in that light. Tamari said, this is the first of the two rebuilds for the Falcons. The current one is with the sunset of Matt. The next is one after Matt and retirement. Calvin with his mental, and Foye with his free agent center are gone. Yeah, I mean, especially once Matt is gone, which isn't going to happen for at least another 2 years because that's how the cap is That's how his contract is set up, at least. And that's also how the NFL is set up right now. The NFL is very favorable, especially to a fault when it comes to protecting the quarterback. So I have no problem with him being there still 2 years later, possibly 3 years later. There's not really much of a timeline for that as far as his performance, but there is a timeline as far as what we can do for him financially, or what he can do for us financially. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm still going to be here once Matt is gone, because he wasn't the reason as to why I became a fan. And then after that, you have Calvin Ridley. Like, he's still a question mark to the team. And Foye, depending on what he thinks of the Falcons, what he thinks of the franchise and the fan base. I know the last notable linebacker that had left for free agency was Devondre Campbell, and I remember him saying on social media that he hated the Falcons fans because they were singing his praises once he left. And it was very disrespectful, which is why, like, now we can't get a guy like that because we burnt a bridge as a fan base. Not like we were responsible for that, but the fan base as a whole, whatever that means, that also has the power to burn down certain bridges. So when it comes to who could possibly be the next quarterback, they're definitely not going to have any sort of meaningful connections to anything social media related, or be out there in the open and attract a lot of attention, because I don't think this fan base is prepared for that. Once you respect a guy that has been here for a long enough time in order to see himself, like, they lost the joy from watching him. And now they're asking questions about, like, well, what has he done for me ever since this happened? Or what has he done after this year? And my kind of question back to them was, what has any other Falcons quarterback before him ever done for us? Collectively. I'm including Michael Vick in this category. Like, what has any of them done in the past for us? Like, their resumes as a whole doesn't completely stack up to what Matt Ryan's done right now, as far as his legacy that he left. And here we are, because he quote unquote lasted too long on this team and overstayed his welcome. Now barely anybody can root for him. So seeing a next possible quarterback step up and take the mantle of that, I think they're probably not going to be as prepared as he was, because everybody's a different person and nobody's really the same. And you can take that for good and you can take that for bad. That's just the fact that people are raised with different qualities of life, and people are raised with different background knowledge and family history, and whatever the case may be, that may cause one person to react a certain way towards what has been said about him versus another. And I think that obviously coaching and getting into the NFL, you'll start to realize that you can't stay on a social media platform for too long. Mike Davis with your Twitter. But just know that you have to tune a lot of things out eventually. And our fan base would definitely have to be one of them. It says, if we didn't give Matt Rent all that money, we could have had a better free agent. Well, he actually kind of lost money this year. That's what restructuring means. You're kind of backloading his contract so that technically he's going to be here for another 2 years, but it's really, you're given options along with that. But that has little to do with the salary cap. It has a lot more to do? The 57 players that are on our dead cap list. That's longer than our actual roster list. Yeah, that's a problem. When there's more percentage of the cap that's being wasted than what Matt Ryan's gear contract right now is worth. That I'd consider a problem. Like if we didn't burn 27 plus $1 million in the garbage, paying players that don't play for us, what do you think is going to happen? Especially when the salary cap dropped because of COVID. If those scenarios don't happen, then of course, yeah, we can have a lot better free agents. We can have all sorts of money. But Thomas Dimitroff didn't know what he was doing. And it got to the point where he didn't care that he didn't know what he was doing anymore. And that's the sad part about it, is that for everyone that we want to blame, like Thomas Dimitroff was the captain of the ship. So don't blame the janitors. Like don't blame all the people that are not in charge, that are not responsible for the downfall of the boat. Like, yeah, we understand that this is kind of like a sinking ship. But at least blame the captain for the reason as to why that's happening. Like don't blame the passengers. Yeah, you don't do that. No, you go for the direct source of the problem. It was the dude that couldn't steer the boat in the right direction. In a similar fashion, Thomas Dimitroff, he couldn't steer the Falcons in a positive direction after a time. He just got bad at his job. And it became to the point where we were starting handing out all sorts of contracts for people, again, that don't play for us anymore. And the ones that kind of do, they're not producing as much as we want. Like a Dante Fowler, like a Mike Davis, like a Matt Gono. You got to think about that aspect too. It's not about the money that we're giving to the player that has actually been on the team. It's all the money that is just being spent for people that aren't even in the league anymore. Ever consider that as a possible solution as to why the team is currently failing? Saying we're not developing Reggie Grant, Frank Darby, Matt Hennessy, Caleb McGarry, just like we didn't develop Tack Vick and Nito Smith. Well, Matt Hennessy and Caleb McGarry, they're actual starters. So the best practice is the stuff that you can actually get on the field. But as far as like Richie Grant and Frank Darby, their needs right now on the team, while it's very prevalent for Frank Darby, we don't want to kill these guys' confidence. Which is basically the only reason as to why I can see them not starting them. Or not seeing them have any action in the game. At least Richie Grant's on special teams. At least Frank Darby's on special teams. So it's not like they're not on the field at all. They're just not in where they should be. I didn't want to have to draft a second round gunner on special teams or whatever. Like, I didn't want to have to draft that. And I didn't want to have to draft a 6th round gunner either. Knowing that we had 9 different opportunities in order to get people that were worthy of the pick. And to know that not even 5 of them are starting. And the other 4 are just doing who knows what, getting paid every week. Jake Johnson, how's it going? He's saying, should the Falcons rebuild? I already kind of answered the question. So it's not like we're saying that, oh, well, we shouldn't because we have the chance in order to go to the playoffs and being like that. Like, I don't want to give you guys that false impression in order to cause even more despair. Rather, I'm saying we have to look competitive so that we know what positions to evaluate moving forward, because there's a lot of money that has not been going to the right places as recently. We don't have all the draft picks. We're not in a position to get the top draft pick, but like I said, it's not that matters all that much, because those top draft picks are going to go to quarterbacks anyways, whether they deserve the pick or not. So what you're left with right now is a team that needs to find its identity on both sides of the ball. I believe that we're getting a lot closer to the defensive side than the offense, which is really surprising. But right now, our season is looking very similar to 2015. And if you remember that one, yeah, we were 5-0 and then went 3-8 the last couple of games. But we at least look good in certain spurts of the moment, in certain spurts of the season. Have we at least looked competent in this season? And that's all we're really expecting. So it's not the matter of, well, we'll just get the number one draft pick and then everything's all good to go. When has it ever been that simple in the NFL? Seriously, when? On Madden, sure. All you have to do is just get rid of all this stuff because they don't care about the dead cap, and that's why Madden's not really a good game. It's not a good comparison. Saying, I saw an updated injury report that said that Cordell Patterson was limited in practice today. I say sit him and let him rest. Yeah, if it's definitely for injury purposes, you got to make sure that these guys are being taken care of as far as their health is concerned. You can't rush them into situations where they have no chance at winning or looking better than they were before. So that's also kind of a blow to any fantasy owners right now too, because this would have been like another breakout game for him potentially. Ronnie Brown saying, what happens if we trade Matt for next season for a team that will take on most or some of its salary? That financially can't happen. We can't transfer that money. We would have done that for Julio. We would have done that for certain other contracts. It's not that we just can, hey, let's just take all this pile of money and then walk over to the other team and then just drop it off with here. Again, when has it ever been this simple? Remember when Brock Osweiler had that terrible contract for the Texans, and then he was being paid to play for the Browns? That's the type of situation that you would put Matt Ryan in, and that you would put the Falcons in. You are now paying this guy a lot more money to go play for someone else. And what that does to your cap, which is already terribly low, is that it's ruining your chances of improving the team. And now you got rid of the only guy that's been there for you on a consistent basis every year since 2008. So what legacy do you deserve at that point as a franchise? Saying offense line, defensive line, or other need for the first round of the 2022 draft. Well, pay attention to Saturday night stream, because that's what all this jargon is over here. Because we had talked about this at length on last Saturday's stream, and I'd say it went pretty well, all things considered. And then we're going to be touching on the defensive side and kind of wrapping up the conversation about that before our actual game. AJ Evans, how's it going? You're saying, do you trust Josh Allen against New Orleans or Jalen Hurts against the Giants? Oh boy, a lot of these quarterbacks are wishy-washy right now. But if we're talking fantasy here, Jalen Hurts has really looked competent. I could say that about the Bills last week against the Colts, even though they were at home. There's been a lot more incidents where Josh Allen has looked bad, and then the rest of the Bills team has looked bad. Now, it's not like Jalen Hurts is like substantially better than him, but I think that the situation where, okay, well, let's take a look at their matchups. I would trust any quarterback to go up against the Giants defense versus any quarterback to go up against New Orleans defense. So, injured or anything that they may be, I know that at least Jalen Hurts has a momentum, and that Eagles team has a momentum. And it's not like the Eagles schedule is any harder because they face them twice a year. They face Washington twice a year. They face the Jets. And then like the last game is going to be against Dallas. It's just, you never know, which is why, like, hey, like you can't count certain teams out just because you look at the record and be like, oh, well, did they really beat any good opponents? Like what everyone was saying about the Colts. It's like, yeah, well, you just have empty stat padding wins. Again, you have a hard time saying anything and feeling right when when the results actually happen, especially in this season, when you can literally just say anything and then the opposite happens. So, everyone's saying Felipe and Rosen should not be here next year. Well, I'd still take my chances with Felipe Franks, just not at quarterback. But when it comes to his progression, as far as that position where we intended to draft him at, I think he's going to look like a lot of mobile quarterbacks would, had they stepped up into our position. We've said this time and time again. Our offensive line is not ready. Our defense is not ready. Our run game is not ready. Our coaches are not ready for any different type of mobile quarterback. How's it going, by the way? Vic had an NFC Championship appearance. Technically, so did Chris Chandler. Yeah, those two quarterbacks combined in Falcons franchise history has currently tied with Matt Ryan right now. And you can say whatever you want about like, oh, well, the talent disparity and all that kind of stuff. Well, we've seen what good quarterbacks look like in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s, and the 2000s. And look who still stands above the rest of them. Look what a certain prototype does. Remember, I became a Falcons fan because of Michael Vick. But I became a football fan before I became a fan of any team. So, bias aside, I take a look at the body of work collectively. It hasn't been there historically since 1966. But go ahead and throw away the person that was actually worth it thing. That's not even me saying that. I'm pretty sure you got that quote from watching the first Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure because I recently watched it again with my friends as we're getting up to watch the marathon of Spider-Man movies until honestly like No Way Home comes out. Yeah, in spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Congratulations, you made a Matt Ryan equals Spider-Man comparison. Certain people don't want to hear that. I just watched the Buffalo 30 for 30. Tim Kelly, who hated going to Buffalo, was still embraced by the community even after losing 4 straight Super Bowls. It. Oh, really? Seems you weren't. Anyways, if that's the case, why doesn't anyone talk bad about Steve Bartkowski or Chris Miller? Falcons did Matt Ryan a disservice by re-signing him when his contract was up. He was already on the decline. because we're very much in a what have you done for me lately type of society now. Very microwave. We want things yesterday. The fact that they came today is not good enough for us. The kind of environment that we're in right now. And there really isn't a easy way to change that. You know? Now everyone's saying that, oh, well, maybe this guy wasn't a good quarterback. Again, you live by the week-to-week narratives. You're going to look stupid. Mike Davis was actually on Fontenot. I didn't understand that. But remember, who's been there the longest with that amount of control with the money that they were given? You know, it's like if I hand you my wallet that had $3 and you go to Dollar Tree and get yourself a candy bar, and I'd be like, really? You just got a candy bar? You see how that doesn't work out? We've been selecting the wrong players in the free agency and the draft in the past 5 years. Yeah, because we had the wrong people in the positions. Now, we have new people to give a chance to. Now, we have new talent to look at. Now, we have a different roster to try to build. We have a different nucleus that we must acquire. We have a different division and conference and heck, NFL that we're seeing right now. A lot of differences can happen even in a span of 5 years in all of those areas. You know, and it's because of those kind of bad signings and regrets and mistakes where, yeah, we're in the heck hole when it comes to paying anybody. When the Falcons gave the ascension to the league MVP, even if he's bad at the bottom half of the contract, they locked up the rest of his great years. You know, you can think of it that way as well. He's saying, Darby, I feel like is going to follow a similar trajectory as Gage, where he gets more involved every year. But I hope they use him so we can see what he is. Yeah, because Russell Gage was not being utilized at all until like the later half of the season when he broke out in around 2019. He was also a 6th-round draft pick. But remember, different regime, different coaches, different philosophies there. So maybe they cherish certain positions when that's like, hey, like you have to have at least a certain amount of knowledge. I say that, and then we put Marvin Hall on the field, and then he looks like he doesn't know what to do. Again, it's very difficult in someone like my position to understand what everyone's doing. I'm just a dude, you know. Like I've said this at the beginning a lot of times. Like, hey, take what we say as what it is at the moment. You know, like having hindsight and going back to all these different discussions after everything has happened, it doesn't do you any good. You didn't gain any extra knowledge from that just because you saw the result now. It's not a matter of just being right all the time. It's just a matter of what is going on and just understanding what's happening. So, you know, there's a lot of differences that you have to just like take account for. Humphrey is rated as the best center in the league, and he also drafted in the 2nd round, 23 spots behind Richie Grant. Exactly. So what that tells me is that you don't need just the top pick in the draft alone in order to build up a team, in order to get guys in positions to play correctly in your scheme and whatnot. So, you know, and then you brought up another example with Momanje Stevenson. I'll give you another example because I wanted him in the 6th round, and that was Khalil Herbert, who went to, you know, the Bears. You know, we can sit here and complain about all the people that we didn't pick, but at the time, what was the difference? What was the difference in terms of our needs? We needed secondary people. It wasn't just a matter of, well, we can get by. We could not get by because we had one of the worst passing defenses in NFL history. You need to atone for that. You need to do what you need to do, and that's why we have 3 players in the secondary that are rookies. And even more so from practice squads and UDFAs. That was the bigger need on the team. And because that need right there takes up a lot more people than a simple running back, that's why it looks so bad in hindsight, because we're like, well, we could have this person. And yeah, he would have definitely had the same coach and the same offensive line and the same, run system and the same players around him and the same schedule. Again, like having all these types of comparisons, they're not always going to work. Blindly taken for picks does not work well. You still need to complete this. You still need to complete to set a culture as the 76ers. Yeah, one of the things that they were always noted for saying was just trust the process. Again, this is year 1 and having a new start. You can't expect so much when you don't know what's going on right now. You can't expect so much in the future when you don't know what's going on right now. We are over here are trying to understand what is going on right now, and that gives us a better idea to what to look for in the future moving forward. We have to understand what we have right now. We have to understand who can be here for us when things go bad. And that's not just a player problem. That's not just a coaching problem. As we see in so many years of this, it's a community problem too. You have to set a culture in all facets of the sport. One of the facets of the sport is having a community behind the team. And if the community behind the team largely dislikes everything that they see on the team, and at the same time expect greatness from it, what kind of culture is that? What kind of culture is always expecting us to win 100-0, and the fact that we only won 27-25 or 17-14 or 27-20 or 30-28? The fact that those ones aren't the ones that we can just take back and look fondly at. But no, it's rather it's the 43-3 and it's the 25-0 and it's the 34-30 and it's the 19-13 and or whatever. It's, you see how that can change. You see how that has not changed though. When it comes to building a community behind a regime, it's hard to do that in a microwave society. It's hard to do that when everyone, like I said, everything has to be expected yesterday. It does not satisfy me at all that it showed up when it did. And now if you want anything on time, you might as well not even try that because we're approaching the holiday season. And yeah, complaining about all this stuff, it's not going to make you feel any better for those occasions. Yeah, we have not drafted well in recent memory. But again, who's completely at fault here? If you say the guy right now, you've said the wrong answer. Again, think back to the scenario. If I hand you a wallet that's got $3 in it, and I'm shunning you for buying a product that's less than $3, what good did that do to you? He's on the Raiders now. Wow. Jeez. 60% of the fan base is ignorant bandwagon jumpers who, when things are good, they say they knew the team could do it. I'd go so far as to say you're being generous on that number. I'd say you're underestimating that number. All things considered, fans still have to realize that we're in the first year under Austin Fifth, and we took over a team with cap issues and no money to get good players. Again, that's all you have to understand. And then once that gets into your head, everything else starts to make sense of what you're seeing on the field. Once you see this right here, by Will Smith just condensed everything that I've tried to say in 50 minutes, in like a 50-minute span of time. He said it right here. All right, that's all you got to know. That's all you need to know about the first year of how everything's going. You can't let your expectations go so beyond belief so that when it doesn't happen, now you suddenly, just throw Matt Ryan away then. Everyone else is potentially fine though, but yeah, just throw him away. Yeah, things will change, but pretty soon you might have to be rooting for whoever the heck is joining the USFL, which, by the way, I didn't know that was a thing until a couple of days ago. That was a weird transition, but anyways, yeah, the USFL is coming back. I don't know if anyone else saw that, but there's now 8 teams. I didn't bother to write them down because I didn't think they were going to garner so much attention. I checked back recently, and they still really haven't. Yeah, that's going to be another spring football league. It's supposed to be having more financial backing now than what like the AAF and XFL have been given. Like they had other problems too. Like it was more COVID for the XFL than anything. The AAF just didn't have enough money. Now they're trying to revamp another thing for other athletes to get in the spring leagues. I also saw this one post that was saying that we're eventually at maybe like 5 or 10 years down the road, or even in between that span of time, we might be expanding the league yet again to like 40 teams in the league. They might be thinking of adding 8 new NFL teams, and they're trying to figure out like, oh hey, well, where should we go as far as like the city and the state to represent? Have fun building a fan base with them, knowing this type of society that we are in. As soon as it doesn't hit perfection, which nothing can, you're not going to want it. And it's not just our fan base too. When things are bad, they don't know how to give constructive criticism, yet still to support the team and cheer for them to get better. Yep. What's going on, Millie Mills? It's nice to have some. I know some people are okay with seeing me, but it's nice to know that I still got a name. Mike Davis does not deserve all the blame for the run game. I agree. And like I said, yeah, he slips. Who the heck hasn't? But when it becomes a consistent problem of the differences between what you did in Carolina versus what you did here, like I said, like that is all about the offense that you were in. I'd say the 2015 version of us, heck, any number 1 wide receiver at that time would have had a massively productive season. Because that's all our game plan was just throw to him, throw to him, throw to him, throw to him. It didn't matter the situation. We're just, hey, just throw to him. Give him all the yards, give him all the receptions, give him all the whatevers. We didn't win with that formula. But hey, it put all the butts in seats, right? Everyone was talking about Quinn being the savior after the 5-0 2015 start and didn't make the playoffs. 2016, great regular season and playoffs until the last 17 minutes of the Super Bowl. Well, I mean, the fact that we still maintained some of the bits and pieces of our roster and then got back to the playoffs literally the next year after that stands for something. But still, it wasn't just a matter of our coaches, because remember, that was the first year under Sarkisian, where we still had we had a more productive defense at that time. We were literally one play away from beating Philly. And we know that the Vikings weren't going to show up in that championship game based off of their performance against Philly. Again, we could have been right back then. Probably had a lot more fire under us. Ever since Matt Ryan arrived, the team has had a few chances at a Super Bowl. Had a few chances at a Super Bowl championship. In 2010, that was a very weird year statistically. 2011. You want to talk about embarrassing losses? 2012, yeah, we were definitely a 4th and 5 conversion away from being there. We obviously all understand what happened in 2016 and 2017 because I just talked about it. But got Hennessy, McGarry, and Mayfield a part of it too. Caleb McScare. I don't know how that started. The thing is, a 20-year season ticket holder, I sincerely want the Falcons to win. But in all things, we have to admit and address the flaws and change our philosophy of our team. Well, we're kind of halfway there to doing that already. As a 20-year season ticket holder, hey, I admire that. And that helps me out to determine who can remember all the times when we didn't have competent quarterback play. And one of the things that, someone may have forgot to mention, Matt Ryan was literally the only quarterback in our franchise history to give us back-to-back winning seasons. The only one. The only quarterback since 1966 to give us back-to-back winning seasons. Now, was he the sole purpose of that? Not necessarily when it started, but at some point he began to be. And the fact that he did that in his first 5 years in a row, and then had another back-to-back winning season after that, once the rest of the roster got somewhat competent, kind of lets you know what you have in this guy. Now during the Michael Vick era, the Falcons did get to the NFC Championship team in 2004. That was the only year during his time in Atlanta that a team competed for a championship. Yeah, I agree. Like, we still had some good spurts. I was going to Brian Peoples. Again, good to know that I have people that remember my name. I've been very critical of Marlon Davidson this week, and that's because ever since we drafted him in the 2020 draft, all the way up 2 weeks ago, I've done nothing but hype him. Yeah, it's tough when you see like a guy that you really like and you really want them to succeed, and you're starting to realize that, yeah, they're probably not going to pan out the way that you think. It's very disappointing, and you immediately want to blame everyone else and then try to do your best and then like avoid the conversation of like, well, he's been injured and, so he hasn't gotten playing time. I've seen him get good playing time. And it's not that he's been bad. He just hasn't been what we need at that position, which is a dominant force. Can he be that? Probably if he changes his technique, or probably if we have to change the scheme around him. But what we have right now, what we're striving to achieve, especially on the defensive line, it's not there. Like, it's not really there. technically Grady has been playing out of position this entire season, no matter where you put him on the line, because everyone else around him hasn't lived up to par. Exactly. And it's like we still need the DBs and defensive line. We're going to, like I said, we're going to get into that Saturday night only on AFN. Just keep that in mind. So for those of you that are watching on Mad Mike Sports pretty much exclusively, I'm not one to tell people to hit the subscribe button, but you might as well go ahead and go over there to the way I can get a much better poll for everyone else. You know, because at the time that this was made, there was roughly around a few hundred, and I know that we can get a bigger crowd than that. A lot of opinions that can be had here, you know, and a lot of opinions that we can be reviewing over here as well, and seeing if there's any other ideas and whatnot and averages that we can change. So, guys, you can be here for that, because that's honestly that's way more of an interesting conversation than what's been happening right now. Marlon Davidson isn't going to suck up double team effectively like a no cycle. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. He's not the same player that I saw dominate the SEC at Auburn. He hasn't brought that intensity to the Falcons, in my humble opinion. Well, it may be your humble opinion, but it's certainly not your non-knowledgeable. I mean, you seem to have a lot more knowledge about him, so you can understand some of the flaws that he may carry when you put him in the wrong scheme, you know. And a lot of certain positions are very like prototype dependent, you know, like a 3-4 type of defense. You can't have a skinny person playing a 3-4 play a 3-4 nose tackle at zero tech. You just can't. That's a flaw in the system, and it's not like 300 pounds is tiny, but when you see guys in the league that are 345 and 350 and can still do that job of just push the pile, that's what you need there. Not a guy that's 300, not a guy that's 295, not a guy that's 290. And that's a good majority of what our defensive line group is. So we had to change our whole defensive philosophy. But when you change a philosophy, the change on the roster as far as who you have there, that doesn't change automatically either. Like, it's not just a matter of, oh, well, I just got to switch their position in Madden. It's not that simple. Again, nothing in the NFL is simple anymore. Agents and not vibes. Oh, jeez. Or like John Kaminsky vibes. Exactly. You have that problem too. You're not going to be able to get every player that you want in the draft. There's a lot of guys. Like, I've scouted thanks to guides and stuff, but I was able to take a look at a lot of people in this draft class from that came out. And that's why I was able to pound on the table for certain players that were in the 6th round, because I knew that they would eventually show up. You know, another guy that I liked looking at in college was Jonathan Cooper. And then as soon as he got to start in Denver, he looked good. So I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more of that moving forward, which is kind of why this is in place. He is ideally supposed to be playing a Grady spot in a 3-4. He is a 3-4 defensive end. But his whole the reason as to why he got drafted so high is because he was a 4-3D tackle. And the way that you play those positions are very different. The matchups that you have to account for, the stunts that you may be a part of, like you might be, you know, like on a basketball court when you call for a screen. That's similar to what a stunt move is. You know, you'll have the one person that'll be in the way of the other guy, and so that he can move past you. That's what they are. But if you give the wrong person the wrong responsibility, that plan fails. It's not necessarily the concept itself that can fail. It's just who you have in position will fail. And later he will develop better hand usage and get sacks, hopefully. Yeah, like, it's all about, you know, right now we're stuck with who we have. So let's put him in a much better position. Knowing Dean Pease, he's not going to want to change he's not going to want to change his philosophy. But we're not in a position to change the roster either in order to attend to his needs. So it's a very doomed if you do, doomed if you don't situation for him. Traylon Brooks from Arkansas could be help us at wide receiver if he doesn't go in the first. I'm still paying attention to some of these names. Like I said, like I have college film available for me. I can't show it to you because that's kind of the agreement of me getting the film. But just know that I have it, and I'll be paying attention. As a matter of fact, I'll probably fill up this wide receiver, or I'll probably fill up the whiteboard with other stuff too. That'll be more draft prevalent as the offseason approaches. After this year, they know this team needs to build from the front, both D-line and O-line. Obviously, that sets you up to get a quarterback in the future. For all those of you that are clamoring for the quarterback, give these two trenches 2 years to develop, just like what Cleveland did. No one took them seriously back in 2017. 2 years later, 3 years later, they were in the divisional round. You know, like they were actually someone to look out for these guys. We could very well be on our way right there. But those positions right there, like the trenches, the offensive line, and the defensive line, they need time. And with how young that group is on both sides, they need time. New scheme, relatively so, and new chemistry that they have to develop with each other. You gotta let that simmer. And then once that all comes into fruition, that way you can build a quarterback to have in the offense. It's not that I don't want to get rid of Matt Ryan. I just don't want to get rid of him at the wrong time. You know, because again, I'm a Falcons fan first. I'm a football fan first. Before I'm a fan of any particular quarterback or any particular player. But heck, if that player's on my team, you better believe I'm going to defend him. He's not big enough to play inside, but he has to at least show flashes consistently, but he just isn't. And the problem, but every year since that 2017 team, we didn't have a top 10 defense that season. We were like 8th in total defense, and a big reason was the play of Don Terry Poe. He really helped the defense. Yeah. I was just saying I like Jamison Williams out of Bama. Jeez. All right. Good. Let's see what else. 2017 awesome defense, but Hart being into the NFL was the downfall of that team. Yeah, again, same situation. Once it got obvious, it became clear what our opponents needed to do against us. It's interesting not a single one of these comments has been about the Jaguars. I have been up here for dang near 75 minutes. Long enough for a movie to begin and end. And our whole purpose of the stream is just stop in there. But again, like I always take these types of streams as like, hey, we'll just see how the conversation turns out. I can't prepare too much because then I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to all these comments. And it seems like some of you guys are already having conversations with each other. Goodness gracious. All right. All right. Now it's finally updated on my side. All right. Let's see where we're going to. Okay. All right. There's one from King Quest 710. How's it going? Saying if the NFL does make it to 40 teams, what cities do you see they'll put the teams in? Great question. Because there's got to be 8 of them. And like I said, there's already the USFL that's trying to take some talent from the pool of a lot of people. that are training that like either that have played in high school or played in college, but just didn't live up to par to what the NFL standards were or whatever, or they had like different job choices or life choices that they had to make. I I don't know. It's definitely going to be the one cities that can financially probably support a team. I don't know what cities that are though, but you also have to consider like travel and the amount of people that are interested in that in the sport in that region. So maybe there could be like a very wealthy state, but if no one cares about football, it's not ideal to put a team there. Or you don't want to put another team in another state that already has like 4 or 5 teams, like over here in California. Like it would not be smart for them to add another California football team to really care about in the spring league. So there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. It could be really any one of them. But yeah, my biggest issue is them having to build a fan base. Like if you've been supporting one team for so long, and then all of a sudden there's another like 8 teams that are expansion packs, and then you decide to go over there instead after like having spent like I don't know X amount of years / decades supporting one team for so long. You know. So anyway, I was saying the Falcons just started veteran Josh Andrews at the left guard position. Yeah, if you do that, you might lose chemistry. And right now, I know it doesn't seem like we have chemistry, but it's more so above the head or above the neck, if you will, as far as like what to expect from the week to week game plan. Of course he is, man. On one of my reviews on the article that nobody checks out, I saw like a snapshot, right? Two pictures that were 1 second apart, and it was Grady. 1 second he was lined up as an original position. The next second he was shown um, 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage, already sacking the quarterback. Like, sometimes you'll just end up with those types of plays. How's it going to improve it? My simple thing in the NFL is being the water boy. And even then, there could be movies made about you. Yeah, see? Fantasy Gamer says, what do you think the Falcons franchise would be like today if they won the Super Bowl? Ugh, chaotic. Absolutely chaotic. Uh, and you better believe that they're going to put all sorts of asterisks on the season in which they win. And I'm not even talking about us, I'm talking about nationally. They've already tried to do that when the Braves won. Hint, hint. They had to try to make all these different actions about, well, they should really get rid of the tomahawk chop. It's like it's racist. Yeah. And to your point, we can't rebuild even if we try. I just this is the matter. We don't have money to use like that. The players that are upcoming that have been good for us are probably going to get really expensive. And the draft class, there's been a lot of speculation saying that is not good. So a lot of things are up in the air. But the fact remains is that we have to at least look competitive in order to give the rest of the nucleus to come to let them have a group, to let them get a group. And if we're not even doing that, then We're still rebuilding the wrong way. Okay, I think that. I don't know if you can hear me. All right. One last announcement. I gotta make this. It's just gonna be nonstop. I bought a laptop, and I'm gonna use it for certain projects that I've had in the back of my mind. Oh, there's a green. Welcome, welcome. I'm just getting into the end of our discussion, unfortunately, but hey, you're just in time for my big announcement. I got a laptop now, and what I plan to do with it is I plan to actually start making videos instead of streams. So stay tuned for that. I'm probably not going to finish the cover from this, but it's okay. I had a lot of ideas in the woodworks, and some of them I've already tried to put in in written form, and I've already seen the versions of that, which have been zero. So maybe if I put it in video form for you guys, I might be able to do something about that there. Now, I would be very new to editing. I would still not really have all that much of a schedule in order to do everything as consistently as I may or may not have want to. The projects that I have, especially, going to be really daunting of a challenge. So it'd be great if you guys could, I don't know, support me in the future. I don't know what it's going to look like, but heck, I remember Maggie saying that, hey, this could be a chance for other people to come up on here to talk about other topics. Goodness knows that we're not going to have anything positive to say about that. But all that remains is that I got a plan of what to do for you guys. And that's all I can really say about that. How serious with the plan B and all that other kind of stuff, that's still going to come to me when I get the laptop here. I'll just be new to it. Still going to be new to editing and whatnot. I'd have to do everything myself, which is going to take forever because I still got to hold down a job. But yeah, I guess I'm actually making videos instead of just having to worry on streams about an hour and a half at a time. That was basically everything that I wanted to say. There might have been more. I know there always is more for me to talk about. But final last words for the actual Jacksonville game. This stuff we haven't really gotten to it. But for their offensive side of the ball, I really want for us to stop Agnew. He's been like the biggest spark on that offense for basically ever since ever since James Robinson and Lavish Chanel. They've been here and there, but it's really been Jamal Agnew. Like whenever he sees the ball, he seems to do a lot of good with it. But he's going to be one that I want to watch out for. The Jaguars' defense, in terms of their passing defense, is right there with us, which is at the bottom of the barrel. So offensively, this could be a good right game, seeing as though that we need to get a game where we can feel confident about ourselves moving forward on the offensive side of the ball, because we have a lot tougher task ahead of us with with Tampa Bay coming into our city, which would be let's just focus on the Jaguars right now. Things should be fine. It's going to matter. Oh, the places have social anxiety, separation anxiety. All right. That's going to be all for me. I'm actually having a stream that's not going to last an hour and a half this time, guys. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys were able to tell in my voice, but I've not been feeling great. I've been a little under the weather recently, but we're all good. I'm still able to hold on the show, as you can tell. And tune in for Saturday night, please. I want your guys' opinions on there. This is why I kind of do these streams as well on top of this. That way we can just have a conversation. I know I'm not Mad Mike. I know I'm not Gay Styles. I know I'm not anybody else. Uh, but the fact that conversations are happening, the fact that we can all learn from something from each other, well, that conversation should be about. You know, what we've always said, it's not about just the personalities and people, but it's rather everything that we talk about in order to, hey, make us feel good about ourselves for being Falcons fans. So, yeah, I gotta catch up shortly. So if you're expecting a longer show, tune in Saturday. I'll probably be here earlier than that. Guys, enjoy your time off because a lot of people at this time of the season can experience a lot of burnout, has a lot of mental health problems, and that own guard cause you to snap and whatnot. Right? Just calm down about whatever it is that you're doing that you're frantic about, and yeah, enjoy yourselves. All right, please go for your own sakes.